What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Grey Man Operations. Today we are going to be taking a look, or a first impressions look, at the Mecanik M01 micro reflex sight. This is Canik's own reflex sight design. At the end of the video, I'm going to be giving one away to my patrons. I think this is about the third or fourth red dot I give away on Patreon in the last few months. If you want to join and become a patron and get access to all these giveaways, I give away gear pretty much every month, and in the month of November, I'm going to give away gear every single week. Check out the first link in the video description below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, have a look at the first comment and you'll get the link to my Patreon. So, those of you who follow my channel will know I'm a huge fan of red dots. I believe red dots are the future of pistol sighting systems. And over the years, I've run quite a few on this particular Glock, but the Mecanik M01 is my very first auto-adjusting red dot. The M01 has no buttons on it. You only have the option of an auto-adjusting red dot, and that's where I want to start. In my testing, I created possibly the most complex environment for an auto-adjusting red dot. I have a completely dark range. I have a target that's somewhat backlit, and I'm also activating and deactivating my weapon-mounted light. I have to say the dot does a spectacular job of maintaining a sharp and crisp 3 MOA dot regardless of the lighting conditions. Now, if I was to point my red dot directly at the light source, pretty much like every other red dot, it will wash out. But if you are looking directly into a light source, chances are you can't even see what you're shooting at, so you can't even take that shot anyway. Moving the dot off the light source, even by a slight amount, you're able to see the dot. When I do shoot under low light, even when activating and deactivating or holding my Surefire X300 on a constant light, the dot is there, it's crisp, and the adjustment is so fast that you don't really pick it up. It looks like Canik have positioned one of their photo sensors just behind the optic window or glass. This, I think, is really intelligent, because what it means is it's going to measure light hitting the glass, and it's going to measure it on the side of the shooter as opposed to in front of the glass. I think that's a really clever way of doing it, and it looks like there's another photo sensor on the left-hand side of the optic, which measures the ambient light around the optic itself. Now, what I do like about the Mecanik M01 red dot is that if you mount it on any Meta series Canik, you are going to be able to co-witness with the standard height sights. That's really useful because it means it's going to cost you less to run this in what I consider a proper configuration where you do have a functioning co-witness, because you don't have to buy suppressed side sights. Suppressed side sights often present other issues where you have to have a holster that caters for suppressed side sights. And I do know most holsters these days do cater for it, but in the early days of when I started running suppressed side sights on my Glock, you had to always stipulate to the manufacturer how tall your sights were in order for them to make sure that your suppressed side sights would fit their holster. Also, it means the optic sits lower, so your height above bore is not as much, and it just allows for a more natural point of aim. People who don't have red dots but know how to shoot are used to presenting the firearm in such a way that the dots, your 3-dot sights line up, your iron sights, excuse me. And if you do that with the Mecanik, or with the Mecanik M01, your red dot is going to be almost perfectly centered in your window. Another really cool function is that for the Meta series pistols, Mecanik red dots come pre-zeroed. I have not touched the zero on my pistol, and from the moment I got it right up until my last shots last week, the zero has been maintained. The red dot has Mecanik's patented TCF design. That's tactical concave face. It is patented, and it's basically something that allows you to rack the slide off the actual optic, but because the face is concave, it's more grippy, or shall I say, it's easier to get a purchase on a ledge of any kind, whether that be the side of a wall or your belt or pretty much anything that one would think you can rack this optic off, you can very easily rack this optic off. Because of that tactical concave face, the actual glass is recessed. So you have a bit of an area in front here, so that even if what you're racking off does somewhat go into the optic window area, the glass itself is recessed. So there's the potential for you to rack it off something that does have a bit of an edge and not crack your glass. Obviously, guys, I want to stress, racking your optic off certain things is not the best way to do things. This is your aiming system and should only be done as a last resort. If you do have to grip the optic itself does have a grip texture on either side. So I know a lot of guys, they take grip tape and they actually wrap it over their optic. This optic has these cut out serrations on either side of the optic. I'm hoping you can see it. That allows you to grip it and rack it off the optic. The optic runs off a 3-volt CR2032 battery. It is bottom mounted, which is possibly the only oversight in this design. You have to take the actual optic off to change the battery. The battery life is quoted at 60,000 hours. That's over 6 years. I would say legitimately you're probably looking at about 5 to 6 years. It does also have an auto off function in order to save the battery. If the firearm itself is unmoved for 3 minutes, the optic automatically switches off. It then has a shake awake feature which is incredibly sensitive. You can literally just tap the slide and the optic will shake awake. In all my using of this optic, obviously I've never had to put it on and never had to put it off, but whenever I presented, the dot's been there, crisp and clear. What helps with the clarity of the dot is it has a significant notch filter. The notch filter is that bluish tint you'll often find in red dots, and what it helps is it helps to present the dot more clearly, but it also lets the dot run on a lower setting so that the battery can last longer. So it's emitting the least amount of light from the emitter to hold the 3 MOA dot. Now very quickly, what you get in the box when you do purchase one of these Canik optics is, you get a box. You're going to get your Canik owner's manual, an installation and adjustment tool which is very similar to the one you get from Aimpoint, a microfiber cleaning cloth. You do get a battery, you also get the mounting plate for it, and you get a protective cover. The protective cover, I do apologize, I have no idea where mine is. It's probably laying under a couch somewhere. Can't find it, but I wouldn't be using it anyway. The red dot's footprint is the Shield RMSC footprint, so if you have a slide already milled for that, you are going to be good to go to mount this optic. I do just want to read you guys something from the actual owner's manual that I think is a perfect example of why I think Canik know what they're doing. Because this description is very apt when it comes to red dots. Open reflex optic sights have proven to be invaluable in achieving quick target acquisition. They provide the greatest hit probability on targets by allowing shooters to stay focused on the target. Shooting with both eyes open allows the shooter to remain situationally and environmentally aware of what's going on around them at all times. That is extremely accurate. Now, whilst accuracy when it comes to shooter is also shooter dependent, having a red dot means you're only focusing on your actual target as opposed to shifting your focus between target, front sight, etc. You're not lining up any sights. It's not equal light, equal height. It's just put the red dot on the target, keep looking at the target, pull the trigger, and as long as you're doing everything correctly, the round's going to go where the red dot is. In my firearm journey, as those of you who follow my channel will know, I am significantly faster when I'm using a red dot than when I'm using iron sights. Whenever I train, for me personally, every shot counts. I want to put the shot exactly where I want to put it. And I can tell you, using my red dot is much quicker and provides with a higher degree of accuracy than when I'm shooting irons, especially when it comes to shooting at anything more than, say, 15, 25 meters. When transitioning laterally, I notice no perceptible flickering. What you want is a red dot that's like one of those really high quality laser pens that when you drag it across a wall, it's one solid line as opposed to a lot of flickers and dots. When you do eventually get to the end of your Mecanik M01's battery life, it will intermittently flicker 10 times and then go back to the setting it was on. This will let you know that your battery is getting close to the end and it is time to replace. The Mecanik M01 definitely does fall into your micro red dot category if we look at the difference in size between something like the Aimpoint Acro and the Mecanik M01. These two red dots are at pretty much the opposite end of the red dot spectrum. I have no issues acquiring a red dot regardless of window size. This window isn't massive, but It's also not the smallest. I'd actually say it's about the same size as the Aimpoint Acros window. That does come down to a matter of training, and something I often do that people don't realize, or I don't film often, is I do dry fire draw strokes, or if you can call it dry fire. I basically just draw and present the firearm. And I do that as quickly as I can, and as soon as my dot is exactly where I want it, I reholster. This is a very good way to practice at home to get used to finding your red dot. Ammo these days is really expensive, so if you can get as much practice in at home as you can in acquiring that dot, when you do go to the range, you can then just fine-tune your practice in order to maximize the available ammo. And then lastly, guys, before we give away one of these red dots, your range and windage is adjusted by 2 screws, one on the top and one on the left. As I said, if you are running a Meta series pistol, this red dot's going to come pre-zeroed for your pistol. And I can tell you, one of the questions I get asked a lot is how to zero a red dot. So taking that out of the equation, I think it's a very clever idea and clever customer response from Canik. Let's give one of these away to one of my patrons, and then we'll come back with final thoughts. Okay guys, so those of you who follow the channel know the story by now. I got a list of all my active patrons, and I'm going to copy all 146 of you and paste it into a name randomizer. Just backspace, and we're going to randomize the order of those names. 146 names have been randomized. What I'm going to do then is take the numbers 1 to 146 and paste that into a random wheel of names. Come on. And so we'll paste that here. Just make sure it's 146, and it is. I'm then going to shuffle that order and click, and when I click it's going to spin, and the winner is going to be the name that corresponds to the number. So it's number 133, and if I go to my name randomizer, the name that's chosen is going to be Carl Lager. So Carl Lager, well done to you. You are the winner of that Mecanik M01 red dot. I will make contact with you and then get your details, and I'll get that sucker shipped off to you. Let's switch the view and we can endorse. So well done to that patron. I will get your Mecanik M01 red dot out to you guys. Final thoughts on the Mecanik M01 red dot. It is pretty much a from the factory good to go red dot. If you are okay with an open emitter red dot, and whilst I know closed emitters is all the rage, and I fully appreciate it, I know there are still many red dots coming out as open emitters, especially ones for EDC. If you're talking about duty, I do get that you might want to go closed emitter because your firearm is generally more exposed to the elements. But if you're talking about everyday carry, when you are concealed carrying this, an open emitter is pretty much just fine. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I am going to see you guys next week. From next week onwards, I'm giving away 2 pairs of Urban Warrior EDC ready jeans. Check those jeans out. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the link popping up in your screen right now. It's an amazing pair of EDC jeans. I'm giving away 2 a week for the whole month of November. So join up on Patreon if you're interested in that sort of thing. That's it, guys. I will see you guys soon for another review. Have a good week. Be safe. Train hard. Cheers. God bless.